Well, time to consult the all-seeing cat. I'm going to tell you, I think for the next several months, you're not going to see the markets crash. Even though I'm titling this "Economic Crash: Trump Wins," I think it's going to happen after, assuming Trump wins, if he makes it that far. The other thing is, will he live to be that old? I don't know. You know what happened last time? We had a real president that was bucking the system, JFK, and he didn't make it through his 4 years. I don't know what's going to happen with Trump. I just can't believe that we can that easily defeat the bad guys. Um, and the other thing is, you also got to look at it from this angle. Um, this is something I always say too. Like when we have the attitude that we have to send somebody to office that takes care of all our problems, we already lost. And that's the reason why you also have silver. You don't need a banking establishment to take care of your finances. You don't need somebody that's a financial advisor to say, I'm going to move your money here, I'm going to move your money here, and I'm going to take a $75 cut every time I do that. You don't need those type of people. They're the middleman. It's like, you own your own money. That's why you have physical silver. Um, as far as what's coming up, I do think that the markets are going to continue to do pretty well. I mean, it's not going to be something where they're going to go up like a hockey stick, but there's not going to be no major crash until after the election because it looks like the powers that be are trying to keep Hillary Clinton in the game, and I don't think she's going to make it. Well, she wouldn't make it if the elections aren't rigged. That's the other thing. Um, that's the wild card. If the elections are not rigged, she's not going to make it. But I'm using these elections as a predictor as to what's going to be happening in the markets. Um, Now I do notice obviously that silver and platinum and now even palladium's getting some life more so than gold, and that's a good sign because when the white metals start going up, that's usually even more bullish for the commodities in general. We're not out of the desert yet, though. Just like old girl here is by the ocean. We're still kind of stuck in the sand. For silver to be over $20 is something to say it breathed somewhat of a sigh of relief. But I think silver really needs to be over $35 before we could start saying we're on our way. But what we're going to see, though, is I think there's going to be a lot more economic hardship coming up, especially due to, and I harped on this many times over in other videos, was about an angle that people aren't really looking at too much that are talking about silver, but it actually is our weather, our overall climate, where John Casey, who's wrote the book Cold Sun, he's based in Orlando, used to be a NASA scientist, I think, that we're going into a time where we're going to have a lot less um, agricultural output. Crops are going to go up in price very much, exponentially. And the other side of it is that we have a vastly increased population that we have to support. Now, well, the reason I'm bringing this up is because food prices, energy prices, and commodity prices in general tend to kind of run together in a roundabout way. Not perfectly. I mean, it's not. It's almost as if I'm making a correlation with this coconut tree here. It's not a perfect one-to-one correlation. But when food prices go up exponentially, it's usually related to everything else out there. The reason being is that um, demand for food is it it just causes demand for other things to go down, that are big ticket items, and it just causes commodities. Commodities all tend to run together in a roundabout way. Not a perfect correlation, but when there's no such thing usually as one commodity taking off really, really hard and staying high. Like in other words, if you wouldn't see like zinc, copper, and aluminum all taking off really hard, and the price of silver and platinum and food being depressed. It's weird how that works, but that's exactly how it works in general. There is a correlation between all the commodities, and I could tell you one thing that's really going to bring the demand for all economies up is especially food, is the world population. Now, I think what they got planned, and I hate to put this out because it's a doom and gloom thing, but it's a reality check thing that they're going to. I think they're planning for World War III as a cover for the economic crash and all the debt the nations have gotten themselves in, which is the European Union, the United States, Japan. Actually, Japan's even far worse debt ratio to GDP than the United States. They're even far worse. Um, and the only way to correct all this is to erase all that debt, is to go into a global war. And if that happens, commodity prices are going to go up through the roof. Now, this I'm showing a world population growth chart. And actually, this goes back like ridiculous 10,000 years BC. But and it's an exponential chart. It's a logarithmic scale. In other words, if you showed this chart in a real scale, it would look like the semi-nomadic era would be, totally look like zero, because the population from that time to now actually exploded by 2,000 times. In other words, it would reach, if you looked at this chart and it was on a piece of paper, it would reach the height of two telephone poles. It would be that ridiculous. So you can't show it except on a logarithmic exponential type scale. But that is interesting because the population is dependent upon, um, just-in-time delivery of food sources, complicated transportation systems, and also energy that is being used to propel tractors and produce the food and store the food for refrigeration and process the food. If these systems go down due to loss of the grid, the power grid, or there's an EMP strike or something like that, even in a localized area, even if it didn't involve the United States, say it involved part of Europe or part of North Africa or part of the Asian areas, somewhere in Malaysia or Japan, it would be enough to put a burden upon the supply of the global food supply, whereby the prices would go up exponentially, and because you just wouldn't be able to support even the people that could afford to buy the food, there just wouldn't be enough available, and that would cause, you know, very, greatly diminished spending on other items in the other parts of the economy. So that would cause the economy to crash in other areas. In other words, people are spending a lot more money on food due to food prices going up. Due to now, I think it's going up anyway, because even if there was no war, because of the mini ice age that is coming up, and it's going to be very obvious over the next few years. Not in California and Alaska, but in the central United States and northeast United States, the breadbasket of the United States mainly. We're going to see this in the next few years, very obvious, and it's going to continue on and not bottom out till about 2035 or so. So I predict that when Trump gets in, I think he is going to get in. It may not be, in reality, it might be 75% voting for Trump, 25% for Hillary Clinton, but it might be 52% for Trump and 48% for Clinton when the tallies come in, even with the cheating. That is when they're going to crash the hell out of the economy, and then combined with, because they're not going to want this guy to be a two-term president, and they're going to do everything they can to actually probably have him assassinated. I think too. That's another thing. Just like they did with JFK. And then after JFK was assassinated, what did they do? They brought in gun control, right? Why did they bring in gun control? Because the government people actually assassinated JFK. It wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. That's ludicrous. Today, obviously, that's absolutely false, that Lee Harvey Oswald did not. Lee Harvey Oswald definitely did not kill JFK. That was a total setup to the max. But I think that's another possibility that's going to happen with Trump. But considering that he's got a good, strong running mate with Pence, maybe not, because the other thing with JFK, there was LBJ in it at that time. But reason I'm bringing this up is because these things will affect the economy greatly, and I think that as soon as Trump's elected, silver is going to, and oil and a commodity price are going to start going up a great deal because they're going to try to punish the American population with these type of astronomical commodity prices um, because Trump would be elected. Now, you're going to have some protection to having silver. Another protection actually is to go simple, like old girl here is with the bicycle. Um, sometimes some of these simple transportation things can save you a lot of money. Now, it's not a lot of money today, but if gasoline was $8 to $10 a gallon, and you think that's not, I know you think that's ludicrous today, but I don't think so because um, we cannot start up our shale oil industry fast now today after it's been totally destroyed due to these low oil prices. And if there's a major conflagration in the Middle East, you know, it's just there's not going to be much oil available. Despite the demand being low, there's going to be so much less supply available that the prices will go up exponentially. So you might see a lot more of, you know, popularity with the cheaper transportation and all the gas saving gimmicks that are being to be out there again, just like we saw back in 2008 and 2009 when things looked like they were going bad for transportation being very expensive. But but when this is all going on, you're also going to see the price of silver going up quite a bit. When we went to, I think it was when we went to $147 a barrel in of oil in, I think it was beginning of July 2008. Silver had already topped a little bit over $20, and that was like a big jump from where it was before, because it jumped from the low of $8 over a few years prior to that to over $20. I think it was 22 or $21, and then it came back down, and then the next time it really went up was when we had the war with Gaddafi, and oil was getting up to it was well over $110 a barrel. I think it was 120 something or something like that, and that is when silver went to like $47, $48. But the whole key to this actually going up exponentially is going to be conflict in the Middle East. And unfortunately, when you're having this problem with high oil prices, that's going to be when your silver is going to be high. And you're probably going to need the silver at that time just to survive rather than just get rich. Because you're going to wind up spending money on home heating, transportation, and more money than you normally would, and food. And food. So that's one thing. And another side of this whole deal is too, when we're talking about nutrition and I just mentioned the thing about food, but I should go on a little bit of a tangent here because when we're talking about surviving a bad time, because our economy now is a hollow shell. It's a bunch of garbage. The wealthy are making a lot more money because they're well connected to the financial system or they're connected to the political system, and the people with the best jobs basically are in government. As a matter of fact, the entire government is like a lobby in itself. They are a self-perpetuating lobby itself. They're making the government today is making even from 8 years ago is making people that work for the government way more money than people do that don't work for the government. It's criminal what the government actually. People that work for the government are criminals, basically all of them. Whether they have good conscience or not. But the other side of it is that when we're looking to survive, you got to look at your health too. And not only is the medical establishment very criminal in using the way to use pharmaceutical drugs to cover up disease and address disease symptoms, but they're actually the government itself through subsidizing a lot of this garbage that's going into our food, like high fructose corn syrup and soy and products that are GMO. They are actually contributing greatly to the diminished health and also mental capacity of the average American. I'm looking. As an example, you got this stuff here, meatless wham. What the hell is this? Vegetarian. And, it's something vegetarian, no trans fat, but, it's like everything else in it is just an artificial bunch of garbage. It's the food that we got today is not food. And that is, if you look back, going off on a tangent here, but if you look back, I'll tell you something about, I wouldn't believe it. During the 1950s, you remember Marilyn Monroe, right? Marilyn Monroe. She had a 22-inch waist, and you're thinking, airbrushing or photo ops back then. Like they weren't, photoshopping or anything like that. She really was, pretty tiny in the waist. I think she had a 38 bust, 22 waist, 35 hips. Now, would you believe the average American woman's waist back in the 50s was 24 to 25? Only 2 or 3 inches bigger than Marilyn Monroe. So she was like more hourglass shaped, but the average American woman was pretty damn close to that hourglass shape. She would maybe have been 34, 24, 34. As Marilyn Monroe would have been 38, 22, 35, right? But today, the American woman's waist is 34 inches, not 24, 25 inches, 34 inches. And it's not their fault. But I mean, it's the males that are like this too. The males got their 40-inch waist or 38-inch waist or whatever the hell it is. But it's like, what is going on here? It's the food. America's being poisoned. And that's a side of the equation when you're looking to survive with silver. You got to look at this type of stuff too. It's almost unavoidable to get away from all the garbage that's in the supermarket unless you grow your own food, and that's getting very difficult to do too. I'm bringing this part up, even though this is quite a bit of a tangent, but silver is going to be one of the main things that's going to help you survive because I think silver is going to go up greatly in price. But beyond that, you need to be independent in every other way possible because don't be tunnel vision with silver because it's like it's not the only thing. Silver's not going to save you in every instance. If you were a rancher and you had your own chickens and cows and your own tools and you had a welder and you had your own well that you can pump out by hand and you had crops growing in gardens and you had no silver, you'd be a lot better off than a person that had thousands and thousands of ounces of silver that lived in the city. So you got to look at what you really need, and the emphasis should be on that. But what I'm looking at, I think what's coming up is Trump is probably going to get elected in November. But the other side of that is when Trump is elected, it's like, Darth Vader Death Star that runs freaking all the markets out of Wall Street, if you want to call it that. Whatever, that gives you some kind of picture in your mind what's going on here, because the markets are really run by computer algorithms. They really are. They're not. You got web bots trading with each other. As a matter of fact, out of the top 10 hedge funds last year, the top 6, the majority of them were based upon computer programs solely, rather than the alpha male just aggressively going after things and taking hunches and taking risks. It was actually the top winners, the top 6 out of 10 winners in hedge funds did it completely off of computer programming and models of things from programs rather than the old style alpha male attitude. And that is because the markets are really all driven by web bots. They are driven by web bots. There's actually, very little of that trading is actually humans interacting. And that's why I think when Trump gets in, they are going to pull the plug on the markets. The PE ratios, the price earnings ratios are horrible. There's a lot of indications that the retail section is horrible, and the manufacturing section is horrible. But the thing is, what was keeping it all up before was the one bright spot that was actually keeping up the economy before was the shale oil industry that was growing since between 2008, 2009, all the way up through, I'd say, 2012, 13. And after, in the last couple of years, since the price of oil has dropped vastly, that one bright spot has been just totally destroyed, and the people have been laid off. So, you know, obviously something is not right with this picture when you're looking at the markets looking really strong recently, still looking strong, hitting all-time highs, and I'm telling you, the reason they're doing that is because they want to keep Hillary. They want to give Hillary Clinton the best shot at being in office. I don't think she's going to make it though, anyway. And when she doesn't make it, what's going to happen is the markets are going to come tumbling down because then they want to say that the markets reacted to Trump being won, to Trump winning. And when that happens, the markets come down. What happens is capital disappears. People that have capital to reinvest in other areas of the economy, all that money disappears. So, I mean, I wish I could be nice and tell you rosy things, but I realize what's coming up. It's not going to be pretty. So, in other words, if Hillary wins, we're going into hell. If Trump wins, it's going to be a matter of they're going to do everything in their power to make things as hard as possible on the average person, and through economic, the other thing is there's other things beyond that. Depending on no matter what happens, I think food prices are going to go up greatly because of what's going on with a colder climate coming up just naturally. It's a 400-year cycle. We're going into the Maunder minimum again type of mini ice age. And when that happens, I know there's people out there that argue with global warming. It's not going to be that bad because we got global warming. Yeah, we'll see, pal. I already know it's going to happen, and I already know it's going to happen. It's going to be pretty damn rough. But the other good side of it is this. This is where I think the entire government, most of it, is going to collapse, and I'm all for that. Because I can tell you right now, the government does not serve us, even if it's on a state and local level. It hardly serves us at all. It's there to perpetuate itself. It's there to justify their power. It's not for the people. And, the whole reason for the government is to be at the consent of the people itself. But when you're seeing that pretty much anybody that works for the government makes way more money than the average person in the United States, whether it's on a local level, state level, or federal level, there's something wrong with that situation. And when it comes crashing down, it's going to come crashing down very hard. Which I think when I'm talking about crash, I'm also saying that the banking system's not going to be reliable, and anything that's even in brokerage accounts is definitely not going to be reliable because that stuff is not guaranteed by the FDIC. That's all there is to it. Anything in a brokerage account is not guaranteed by the FDIC. If there's a problem, I know some people have already stated that they've gotten out of the brokerage accounts for that reason years ago, and it's like, when is this stuff going to happen? When is it going to happen? It doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen, but it will happen. It will happen. I think they're just pulling out all the stops now recently, and I have to mention this statistic again, that over the last 22 elections, 19 out of 22 times, the direction of the markets 90 days or so prior to the last 100 days prior to the election, the direction of the markets has predicted whether the incumbent party stayed in or the challenging party took over. So if the markets were going down over the last 3 months or so prior to the elections, the challenging party won. If the markets were staying strong and everything looked good, I'm talking about the general equities, the incumbent party stayed in. It's pretty obvious with the major media and the powers that be who are there behind. They want Hillary Clinton to win. So I don't think the market's going to be crashing real soon. But when Trump, I think he's going to win. I know there's going to be a lot of cheating, and I think he's going to win. And when he wins, they're going to crash the hell out of the freaking markets. And they're going to say it's because of him. They're going to say, see, I told you, make America great. Look what he did. He had nothing to do with it, man. Guy could have been there freaking 30. He probably couldn't have been, maybe he wasn't even raised his hand yet to be sworn in as president, they'll already be crashing the markets. I almost guarantee you. I almost guarantee you. So, you know, and of course the people that all voted for Hillary will be saying, "See, I told you this Trump guy was going to be bad." Before he even got in to be president, he's going to be, the markets are probably going to be crashed and say, "That's because he got elected." It's all rigged, man. It's all rigged. But I think what's coming up is that they're not going to be able to rig the commodities prices. And if enough people start recognizing, you notice people don't recognize silver as money at all. Pretty much most people don't. I mean, they'll steal it. I mean, they'll do that. But they don't recognize it as money where to try to seek it, to try to hoard it, or try to save it. They just want to, they don't want to bother with it. They use their electronic accounts, and they might use paper once in a while or a check. But they do not recognize silver as money per se, like in a normal fashion that people that are my channel recognize it. But when I think the economy goes down and you see brokerage accounts disappear, there's not going to be too many places to turn. It's like right now, the PE ratios in the stock markets are so high that the future outlook for equities is terrible. And the future outlook pretty much for everything is terrible except for maybe some of the commodities and also gold. Gold looks good. Gold looks good. So, that's why you should see silver shine pretty soon too. I personally do think that palladium is probably going to outstrip gold in price at one point in time. I sure would like to see that happen. I would sure like to see palladium go to $5,000 an ounce. That would be damn nice, but it could be a lot of years before that happens. It might be in the 2020s for all I know. Um, the thing is, it's going to be a damn tricky situation over the next year or so because they are actually, if you're sitting on silver, you're probably going to be okay. But the problem is you're probably going to need to cash in some of that silver to survive because of the price of energy, the price of food, and, well, the price of energy being transportation of cars and also home heating is going to be very high. And that, even the price of energy is also going to affect the price of retail goods that are shipped throughout the United States. So you're probably not going to get wealthy off this investment like some people are hoping, because even if the silver went up to $75 an ounce, and maybe a few years from now, maybe it'll be $200 an ounce. Maybe it'll be, by 2020, it might be 200 something dollars an ounce. I don't know. But at that time, you might be seeing a loaf of bread costing $12. And, but the other side of it is, if you're one of the people that didn't have any silver, you're going to be very hungry. And there might be, I think there's going to be a time where there's going to be mass starvation throughout this world, far even in the developed countries. Because if the economies crash in the developed world, like the European Union, Japan, the United States, nobody here is set up for growing their own food like they used to be. And the food's going to be available because somewhere in the world is going to be growing food, but it's going to be very expensive. And that is why I think at that particular time you might need to cash in some of that silver and, just so you can survive. So anyway, just want to put this update up. It's a little bit of a doom and gloom update. It is a doom and gloom update. I mean, what the hell can I tell you, man? I got to be a straight shooter about this stuff. But when you're looking at what the situation is in it, like from a bird's eye view, and you're standing back a ways, and you're not looking at all the drama events that's been going on day to day. This is what's coming up. We do have an entrenched conspiracy in the United States. There's no doubt about it. And Trump, yeah, he probably is going against that quite a bit. Quite a bit. I assume so. I hope so. I mean, I'm not 100% sure he is, but I hope so. And, if he wins, they're just going to pull the plug on the economy. That's what I'm telling you right now. I mean, nothing he's going to be able to do about that. And I think they'll try to kill him too. And then, usher in a lot more gun control, even though it would have been a government plotted, assassination, just like they did with JFK and Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy. So anyway, just hang on. I just tell you that right now because what's coming up is not going to be a picnic. Um, as time's going, we could see, the evil forces are not necessarily winning in great strides, but they are winning piece by piece. And I can also even tell you that even on a social media, including YouTube and Google, and well, especially Facebook. Though I don't like Facebook at all, but just even everywhere, the powers that are the money powers are all behind the scenes. They will push messages that are used to influence people, and they will hide messages that they don't like. They'll push the messages they want to influence people with, and they'll hide the message from people that they don't want that information to come out through computer algorithms and things like that. I mean, it's pretty obvious they do that with everything that's on the internet, right? So, I you know I know that sometimes I was surprised that's why even like when I'm subscribing to channels on YouTube, I never subscribe to those channels that are like million, what the hell you call those, million subscribers and things. I don't subscribe to any of those. It's always the smaller channels because the smaller channels are more likely to tell you the truth. They're not hooked up with somebody that is deliberately trying to sway public opinion. Because I can tell you one thing, as far as people thinking that the internet has got the powers that be on the run, the powers that be know how to use the internet, and they do know how to use the social media, and they do know how to use what looks like grassroots causes um, to bring about change that they want. You think it's grassroots, but a lot of times it's not grassroots. And I can tell you, most of the freaking alternative media that's pushing a lot of these really crazy conspiracy theories, oh, they're working for the bad guys. When they say they're dropping a dime on, what's going on in the government and stuff like that, they're not. They don't. They're working for the bad guys. They really are. But it is quite obvious that the government itself is, it's beyond a racket. It's like a what do you call it? A political action committee, more or less. So if you work for the government, you want to stay working for the government. You have an interest in keeping your job. You have an interest in getting more pay and bennies. You want your retirement. And people now that work for the government are actually getting paid way more than the average person in the United States, which tells me 100% that the government's evil. And if the whole damn thing collapses and these people just get all their pay wiped out, that'll be fine. I don't give a shit. I don't care about them. I only care about the people that don't work for the government. But it's a matter of if you're keeping real silver, you're keeping real material things that can keep you surviving through hard times, like food, and you know how to grow gardens, and you have the right type of tools, whether it's a welder or whatever, framing hammers and stuff like that, and saws that you can build and replenish and repair what you need to without calling up somebody to hire somebody, you will survive. The other people that are sitting on their ass and are not doing anything, they're not going to survive. And for the largest part, that's probably going to be the government people. Anybody that's dependent upon the government and anybody that works for the government, they're the ones that are actually going to be going after your shit. If they're in trouble, but they are going to be the ones that are going to get hurt the most, which is fine by me, to tell you the truth, because I look at them as the problem. So, anyway, stay true to the cause, and I think Trump's going to win. But when he does win, I think they're going to pull the plug on the equities, the stock market, and it's going to cause a disappearance of vast amounts of capital. It's going to cause a slowdown, and I don't know what one person could do about all that stuff because they're going to do everything they can to discredit his administration. That's what they're looking to do. So, you know, um, just beware that when this happens, you might see a big uptick in gold and silver at that time, and also there's going to be a big uptick in food prices. So you're going to need that gold and silver just to survive some of these hard times that are coming down the road. And I don't think it's going to be that far away because usually when food prices or commodities go up, they don't go up like in a nice straight line. They seem to go up like a hockey stick, and very quickly. And that's going to put people in a hurt locker, whereby they're not going to have money left over for discretionary spending, and the retail market's going to suffer. The service area is going to suffer, and that's also going to curtail what's going to be coming into tax revenues for the government, and then the government's going to wind up defaulting, and that'll be the end of that garbage. So it's coming down the road here pretty soon. I know you've been hearing this shit for years, um, but that's why you're staying prepared. I'm not. Hopefully, I didn't put this video out in a way to scare people, but I'm trying to give you a reality check, and you know, it, it's going to be great if Trump gets in and he's legit all the way, like I hope he is. But they're going to pull the rug out from underneath him as much as possible with the stock market and the economy, and we the people are going to have to realize, that's going to be in the game plan. So stay prepared.